Ayubo on to another episode of Beyond the Northern Wall with me, your host, Kayla Malari. It is the 6th of January. It is 2021. We made it. We're here. And already we know. I know. And you know. Now, if you don't know, about today, if you don't have any idea why today is so insane, I actually ask you to we're not going to talk about it here. Join us on Instagram. After this show, I'm hopping onto our Instagram. The Core Dance Crew on IG, going live. We're going to have a town hall. We're going to talk about what's happened today. I'm full disclosure, I'm that kid in class who has their book open inside their textbook. As we're doing this, I have the live feed of the Senate House happening right here. So at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, so right after this, going live on IG, we're going to talk about what's been going on today. We're just going to talk about it. And you guys are free to chime in. I'm not going to have you come in on the video, but you can chime in the comments. Join us there. That's where that discussion will happen. Now, if you can't tune in then because it's too late, that's fine. That IG will be up along with the rest of our IG shows on our Instagram. So, with that being said, what are we doing here today? Today, on the 6th of January, on the 6th of 1, we are here to start a ding-a-ling. Who's that? Oh, sorry. Distracted. We are here to talk about a very large and grand subject that really encompasses core, like a lot. And we are starting this is going to be a long one. This is going to be a long one because it affects all of us very deeply. And it is the anime series. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are going to talk about anime. We are going to talk about everything anime. We are going to get in depth with anime. And by golly gum, I will do my best to not spend most of my time crapping on Sasuke. I promise you, she will do her hardest. Do not provoke me, because we don't want to go there. But how do we start talking about anime, especially when we are a cosplay dance crew that is centered and not solely, but we were originally created with the idea of anime being our driving force. It's the core of our name. It's where our name came from. It's where a lot of our inspiration comes from, and it is a centerpiece of what we do. But a centerpiece and the whole mission statement and the whole objective behind it is nothing and mute if we didn't find our way to it. So the question then proceeds, how did we find our way into Miss Anime? Sorry, Joseph. I had to. How did we find our way to anime? Bars. Is my thing I can't tell with my reader if my thing's focused. This is an indicator, mind you. It has a button. Is this the button? Am I pressing? Do you do something? You used to do something. She's unwell. She is unwell. So how did we get into anime? Well, it's weird because there's a lot of us, so we all got into anime in different ways. So I'm going to share with you my story of how I got into anime, and some of our corpsmen are going to try and share their stories as well. Over the course of this series, I'll talk with all the other corpsmen. We'll talk about their favorite animes, what really hit home for them, what their recommendations are, ones that kind of reflect how they see themselves, and ones that kind of maybe weren't the best. We'll talk about our favorite tropes. We'll talk about how we evolved from certain types to different types of genres. But we're going to start at the beginning. So, how did we get into anime? How did I get into anime? Like I said, I am not a youngin'. She is of the old. The old as in I'm 33. I just turned 33. And so I've been alive for 3 decades. I got into anime way long time ago. The first anime that I ever watched that I didn't know was anime was Sailor Moon. That was the first one. That was when I was a wee little thing on the grade school grounds, and we watched Sailor Moon. My sister and I, Tiffany Ray Malari, she's my older sister, we saw Sailor Moon and we didn't know it was anime because all the other girls our age and some of the boys too, our friends knew what Sailor Moon was. We knew the story of Sailor Moon and the Sailor Scouts. And when we would play games, we would pick Sailor Scouts to be. It's the origin of why my sister's favorite color is green and my favorite color is orange. She always picked Sailor Jupiter and I always picked Sailor Venus. Ironically, I've never played Sailor Venus for core. I've only ever played Sailor Jupiter, but I've only ever felt like I played Sailor Jupiter as if I was cosplaying my sister cosplaying Sailor Jupiter. And then the only other scout that I kind of felt like was mine was Sailor Pluto, because she was of the old. She was the oldest scout there, and she's like, I deal with time, and I stay away from everyone, and I guard the doors of time. And I'm sad because I fell in love with the prince, but because I'm over here by the doors of time, he's not gonna fall in love with me. And I was like, girl, maybe not that love the prince part, but like the oldest one and stuck at the doors of time. I feel you. But that's where the origin of me loving orange was from Sailor Venus. I love Sailor Venus. She was my favorite scout. She was the leader of the Guardians. And that was when we were wee little things. And I didn't know at the time it was called anime. I didn't even know. I barely knew it was Japanese. I knew it wasn't American because it looked different. But Sailor Moon, I can't even say was the gateway to anime for myself because I didn't know it was anime. It was just something that you loved because sparkles and those transformation sequences. When you're a kid, we would always get glow sticks. And there was one game that me and my sister played with two of our other dancer friends. And the game was just in the dark. We would have like our little glow things that we got for like $1. And we would take turns transforming. That's it. We didn't really fight anyone. Maybe we kind of did the powers, but we didn't like fight each other. We didn't have stories. We would just transform and then call out the different powers we did. We would do that for hours. Hours. Easily amused. We were cheap kids. You didn't need to buy us shenanigans. You just glow sticks and turn the lights off and let us believe we were Sailor Scouts. So then beyond that, as I started to get older and I started to learn things, I remember thinking, well, one, I liked this magical girl thing that was going on with Sailor Moon. And then I saw a commercial on TV it was when the WB existed. So some people only know the CW now. Before it was called the WB. And that's where Animaniacs was. That's the only, and Static Shock. So if you think of like those shows. I remember when Animaniacs was showing one day, and I wasn't a big fan of the show at the time because I didn't understand. I thought it was crazy. But in between those afternoon cartoons, they showed a commercial for this girl who kind of looked like she was drawn like Sailor Moon. And she goes into a library and she opens a book and cards fly out and she has to be a magical girl and capture these cards. And I remember watching that trailer going, what's this? Because that looks freaking cool. Like, what? How do I, what? And I remember watching Animaniacs because I always wanted that commercial because I didn't know when this show was airing. The show would air when we were in dance class. So I never really got to watch it in real time in the beginning. And I just remember there was always this one cartoon that had this magical girl with cards, and I need to figure out what it was. I found out later it was Cardcaptor Sakura, and I found out that they would air those new episodes, those US-based episodes, on Saturdays. So I had to remember to wake up early on Saturdays to go on the WB and watch Cardcaptor Sakura. And I vividly remember the Jump card episode. I remember the Windy. I remember Float. And I remember the episode when Sakura and the American version of Sharon, which is Lee, they go to the beach for a field trip and they were like competing on chopping vegetables. I remember those. And I remember thinking, this is fantastic. I don't know, it doesn't look like anything else I've seen in the cartoon world except for Sailor Moon. So this has got to be a type. And I knew it was Japanese, but again, still did not know it was anime. Didn't know that anime was its own thing. A few years pass. She's lived her best magical life. She is now starting to become a nerd. And when I say I'm a nerd, like me and my sister used to go with my parents on base. So we're military kids, and they would take us on base onto the Air Force base, and there was an exchange part, which is like the shopping mall area, and there was our dad and our mom would always take us there because we loved to sit in the book section and the magazine section. And me and my sister would read books, but we would mostly read the comic books. And I remember opening comic books and I would read the old Archie comics. So if you watch Riverdale, like those Archie comics that Riverdale is based off of, that's my steez. Like I read Jughead, I read Archie, Pussycat Dolls, Josie and the Pussycats, Cheryl Blossom, like the whole nine. But then I remember grabbing like the Marvel comic books and the DC comic books and putting them inside the Archie ones and then reading it that way because I didn't know if I was allowed to read the Marvel ones because everything was really anatomically correct. And it wasn't that it was bad, it was just there was a lot of bulge going on. And that's just alarming when you're a kid. You're like, why does their neck have so many muscles? And the girls are kind of half naked, but it's not like bad. But at the same time, I don't even know if I'm supposed to be reading this. So I would hide that. And so that's the kind of feeling that I got from watching these Japanese style shows. I thought they were really cool and there wasn't anything bad about them, but I just kind of felt like I wasn't supposed to share that with anyone. That came into fruition when I discovered Toonami on Cartoon Network and I watched for the first time Dragon Ball Z. My world, ow! I hit my elbow. Is this blurry? I can't tell with my scanner. Oh, my eyeballs blurry. Sorry. I'm doing the cheater thing. They went back. Okay, well, I missed the verdict, but it's okay. I'll catch up on that later. I'm going to take this off. I can't see with it. I discovered Dragon Ball Z on Toonami, and I came in during the Androids arc. No. Well, kind of the Androids arc. It was right at the end. It was the end of the Frieza arc, and it was right at the beginning of the Future Trunks arc into Androids, into Cell games. That's when I came into Dragon Ball Z. So I came in right when Goku came back from space, and now he's a Super Saiyan. And then there's this guy named Trunks with a sword. Like, can we all just say that sword was so unnecessary? Any sword in Dragon Ball Z? Unnecessary. But why not? Why not have a giant sword with a guy who's got the undercut going? I mean, who doesn't love an undercut? Levi has an undercut. Jim Hawkins from Treasure Planet has an undercut. Trunks originated that undercut. It was great. He had this giant sword. He had a jean jacket. He was super cool. And he would fight people. And I was like, what is this madness? And how do I get more of it? Again, a show that I didn't know if I was allowed to watch. No one said I wasn't, but I went about it like it was a secret. I went about watching Dragon Ball Z like my parents wouldn't let me watch it. They wouldn't have cared because there was nothing bad I was watching. But again, I didn't know. But Dragon Ball Z aired on Toonami at 4 when I had to go to dance class. I had dance class every day at 4. And so I would go into my sister's room and she had the old TV, my dad's old TV, when she finally got it in her room. And it barely got like all of 2 channels. Well, one of those 2 channels was Cartoon Network. So I would take a VHS tape, just one, not multiple, mind you. I would take one VHS tape and I would start recording. We'd have to leave for rehearsal at 3:30. And so I would run home, get home from school, change, push the VHS into the little, like not even a VCR that goes like this, but the VCR that had like the pop up and you put the VHS in and then you gotta push it down. Like that old school piece of shenanigan. And I would put it in at 3:30 and I'd start recording that show. And I'd have to leave the TV on, but put it on volume all the way low so no one would come in and turn it off. And then we'd go to dance class. And I wouldn't get out of dance class until like 7:30 or 8. When I'd come home, I'd have to sift through at least an hour or an hour and a half of whatever was recorded before the show. And then I'd watch the new episode of Dragon Ball Z in my sister's room. And then after that, the next day, I would have to erase whatever that was and re-record the next episode on that same VHS tape. So I didn't get to save any of these episodes. This was just so I could watch them. And they were like fleeting. They were like Snapchat before Snapchat was Snapchat. You got to watch it once and it was done. And then I was like, oh no, I gotta take it away so I can see the next episode. And I did that for so long because, again, this was me being secret with watching anime. When we would go on base in the electronics section, they had all the movies and whatnot. I would walk past it. This is like little pre-middle school Kayla. So, I mean, we were all awkward when we were kids. Anyone who wasn't awkward as a kid, you're lying. And anyone who's like, I was awkward as a kid, yeah, you're telling the truth of a million people. We were all weird kids. And so awkward little Kayla walks, and I saw that there was an anime section. And there was an anime section with a few DVDs that had Dragon Ball Z on it. And first of all, I wanted them so bad. And I wanted to read them, but I didn't know, like, I didn't want anyone to see me. So I would, like, walk past the aisle and then, like, be like, oh, like, she's 9. What? I would be like, look at all of the DVDs. Oh my God, look at all these movies over here. And then walk back down the other aisle, come right back around. Oh, I think I want some of these movies. I want some of these movies. Like, that's how I tried to look at these anime movies that were there. Eventually, I, like, worked up the courage in my little brain to ask my dad for that History of Trunks VHS set. It was a box set with 3 VHS tapes that had the History of Trunks and then the mini movie that came with it. It had a picture of Trunks sitting on a rock, holding his knee, looking down like this. And I worked up the courage and I asked my papa if I could get it. And he was like, you can't get it now, but if you want it later, if you work hard, I'll get it for you later. Worked really hard at school, worked really hard in dance, was a good kid. And eventually my dad bought it for me. And I watched the bananas out of that. It was the History of Trunks saga. And I knew more about Trunks than I knew about my schooling at that point. I was obsessed. And it was the first time, because now I had the VHS, the sleeve that it came in, and it talked about what it was. It's the first time I've ever heard the term anime. And I was like, anime? Because you don't know. It's what it's called when you're a kid. It's like, oh, and then you find out it's anime. So for me, Dragon Ball Z was my gateway anime. I now had a name for it, for the genre, and I had evidence that there was more and that they were making more of this type of stuff. And Toonami was the gateway. Toonami was the gateway. So Dragon Ball Z, that's why I always say Dragon Ball Z means a lot to me. It's what kind of really got me into this world of anime. Toonami was the provider. Because if you remember, Toonami never used to just be in the afternoons. They also had a version that happened at night. And that's when they would air Tenchi Muyo, which was the first time I ever found out what a harem was. Still didn't know what the term is. But you saw harem. And I was like, what? And I'm a weird kid, nerd. So I knew harem to be like a harem for an emperor or for a sultan to hold a harem of his concubines and women. So when I heard the term harem, I was like, wait, I don't think I should be watching this. I was correct, and we'll talk about that trope later. But harem. Then I know with like my sister, we ended up watching Kiki's Delivery Service somewhere on TV and fell in love with it. And through Kiki's Delivery Service, we saw trailers for Spirited Away. And then when Pixar started to become a thing, when Toy Story came out, John Lasseter, who was the main director for all of these major Pixar movies and is now he is Pixar with Disney, he was a big fan of Hayao Miyazaki. And he would always bring Hayao Miyazaki into his interviews and talk about him a lot. And of course, being Disney kids and Pixar, like my family loves Pixar, seeing John Lasseter talk to this man and he's like, oh yeah, I created Kiki's Delivery Service and this movie called Spirited Away. Me and my sister are like, what? That's crazy. So Spirited Away made its way into our lives and we were in love and obsessed. And then so into middle school and into high school, me and my sister and our god brother Dwayne, god sister Trixie, and our little brother Ariel, we really got into a lot of different anime and finding out that there was so many different genres. One of the first that I actually possessed as like beyond Dragon Ball Z, the VHS tapes. The first anime that I went out and bought in a DVD format when we finally had a means to play DVDs, like I was there. I was analog before we turned over to the DVD world. I remember when DVD players were like $400 and you're like, yeah, put things on a CD now. Like I want my Disney VHS tapes and their weird booklet covers. And then everything started turning to a disc. And then DVDs were a thing and they had thin little things. And so with the distribution of DVDs, more anime were coming to the United States. And my friend in freshman year of high school got me into a manga. First time I had seen a manga. Didn't know that's what those were called, because we used to go to like B. Dalton. Who remembers B. Dalton booksellers? And we thought they were comic books, but in book form, not like comic book form, in like little book form. I didn't know that's what they called manga. He got me into Love Hina. And so I remember getting Love Hina manga books as one of my first ones. And then he let me borrow his Love Hina anime set. And in that set, he had one DVD of a new series called D.N.Angel. D.N.Angel was probably one of the ones where I remember actively going out, and now that I worked at the dance studio and I had my own money and I was making my own money, I used my money to buy my manga and my anime sets, and I bought the entire anime series DVD set of D.N.Angel and the manga series, and I got my sister into it and I got Ariel into it. I remember little baby Ariel. So Ariel is our cousin. He works he knows a lot of Corpsmen. He's photographed a couple of them and he's the greatest. Little baby Ariel, he's so old now. Remember when he was a little baby, he used to love watching D.N.Angel. He would just systematically, when he would stay with us during the summers, he would just love watching it. He loved it was all centered around art, and the art was beautiful in it. The mangaka for D.N.Angel was so great. I'm so sad she stopped the series before it even ended, and then she resumed it just a couple of years ago. It's so good, and that was something that we shared together as like a family. It was great to have that together. Yes, little D.N.Angel was so stinking good. I was such a fan of Satoshi Hiwatari. It was so good that we became friends. We had friends at our dance studio in high school. These twins, the Del Toro twins, and they went to a convention way before me and my sister even knew what a convention was. And they found, oh my gosh, I can't remember his name. He was the American voice actor for Satoshi. They found him at the convention and they recorded him saying happy birthday to me for me in Satoshi's voice. But first of all, I was like, wait, what's this thing called a convention? Who knew? And then to have Satoshi Hiwatari, who's really Satoshi Hikari, say happy birthday to me in his voice, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a nerd. She's a full-fledged nerd. And so D.N.Angel and Love Hina to me in manga form, and Negima, which is the series after Love Hina, the mangaka. Okay, I'm all over the place. The mangaka for Love Hina, after he finished that series, he did a new series called Negima. And I love that one because I was there from the beginning. It's all about magic. It's a shonen manga. It had an anime. Don't watch the anime. The manga's way better. But when I was 15, me and my sister and my family, we were going to go visit my family in Guam during the summer for my grandparents' 50th anniversary. And we don't really go and see my mom's side of the family out in Guam often because Guam's not close. It's in Micronesia. So we had to take a long plane ride over to Hawaii, and then a long plane ride over to stop over in Japan, and then a long plane ride down into Micronesia to land in Guam. Greg Ayers! Thank you, Sarah. So during this long, and we're military. So when you go to a military flight, it's not a normal commercial flight. You might sit down facing forward in the plane with a tray and a seat belt and a chair with a window. You might. usually what you do is you get free flights on military, but you have to be at the airport and you have to stay and wait for an opening. And that doesn't mean you're going to have an opening the day that you want to fly out. So we had a couple of days where we kept going to the airport on base and we'd stay there for hours and then go home, sleep, bring our luggage all the way back, hours. And I think on the third day that we went, we finally got on an airplane. And that first one was a normal airplane, kind of. It was like really cramped. It's a military plane, but it's a commercial military plane. So we're in there and we fly over for, what was it, like 10? No. It's, I think, 8 hours or something to Hawaii. And then from Hawaii to Japan, it's like 14 hours. The 14-hour flight, you're not sitting in a normal airplane. You're sitting in these, like, in the cargo bay of a military transport. So it's these these bungee seats, like a bench across the wall, and you sit and you have to wear earplugs and headphones because the engine's too loud, and then sometimes you have to wear a mask, but then you have to like strap in and you get a meal in a little box. It is so freaking loud, and for 14 hours you're just there and you're like, ugh. And then from Japan, we weren't even in Japan long enough to see Japan. We were just on base, and then this long trip down to Micronesia. I say all that because, like, to me, that was a really hard trip. Also, because going into Micronesia, we hit a typhoon. What's a typhoon? Well, here's some geographical knowledge for you. A typhoon, a hurricane, and a monsoon are the same exact storm. Their name changes based off of where they are and which ocean they're in. Are you going to focus? Camera? You here with me? There you go. So we were in a typhoon because a typhoon is a hurricane in the Pacific Ocean. A full-fledged typhoon made us emergency land in Micronesia on the island of Saipan. On the island of Saipan, it is a tropical island where its tourism is all about it being tropical. So, like, their hotels aren't real hotels. Their hotels have, like, bamboo walls or no walls. But we got stranded there in the middle of the storm, and we get put up in a very small hotel that is not meant to withstand a typhoon. And for 3 days, me and my sister and my parents are locked in with a few other passengers from the Air Force Base in this little thing. And there's a storm brewing around us. In the middle of the night, everything went silent because we were in the eye of the typhoon, and it was crazy. It was insane. During that time, I had Negima with me, and that's when I started to learn to draw anime and manga characters, and I had D.N.Angel with me. And so that, like, manga in general, not necessarily that series, but manga in general became something very special to me because it got us through this crazy adventure that nowadays me and my sister talk about. But it really was scary at the time. Like, we were caught and we didn't know if we were going to get out of it. Like, the scope of what was happening was kind of lost on us at the time. But now looking back on it, like, Saipan was torn up. The islands were completely destroyed. And we survived it by hunkering down in our little hotel room with nothing to eat or drink but warm soda and stale Pringles. That's all. And old bulgogi. That's why me and my sister don't like bulgogi. That's all we had to eat for 3 days. And manga. And anime. And so that's why it means a lot to us, because it was there for us when we needed it the most. And that was the D.N.Angel era. Beyond D.N.Angel and beyond Toonami, as I got into it, I remember discovering Naruto for the first time. And I couldn't watch Naruto on TV because it wasn't on Toonami. It wasn't until my late sophomore year of high school into my junior year did we finally get internet. Me and my sister did not have it. We had a computer. We had a big old compact desktop computer that didn't have internet for the longest time. Do you know how hard it is to do homework at the day and age of the dawning of new technology when you don't have internet? And everyone also is communicating via AOL Instant Messenger and AIM. And me and my sister are like, we don't have that. I don't have an email address. I don't know how to research. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. So for the longest time, we didn't have internet. Finally, we did get internet. And I remember one Christmas I asked and I begged and I said, I'll do really hard and I just a laptop computer, so that we finally had 2 computers so that we didn't have to wait for each other to do our homework. It was so hard to do our homework at the same time because my sister was older than me. Of course, she's like a junior and a senior. She needs to do her homework on the computer. But then, of course, I'm getting to a sophomore and they're asking me to do homework on the computer. And I'm like, we only have 1 computer. We finally had to get a second one. And it was like a little dinky laptop. It wasn't super expensive. It wasn't dinky. Gosh, that thing was a monster. But it wasn't that expensive. And we finally got internet on it. And I remember opening it and finding YouTube. And on YouTube, finding Naruto in like part 1 of 16 videos. And I remember on Saturday mornings, I would sit in my sister's room because she had the better Wi-Fi there. And I would watch part 2 of 16 to Naruto episode 9. And you would get part 1, 2, 3, and then they wouldn't have 4, 5, and they wouldn't have 10, but they'd have all the way up to 16. And so you're trying to watch this episode and you're trying to get into it, but you're missing parts and you're like, I don't know what happened. But that's how I got into Naruto. And that dedication to Naruto held, because that was amazing. Naruto was amazing. It changed everything for me. I was like, there could be more. Because like Dragon Ball Z I loved, but that's all I had in terms of action. And then I saw Naruto and I was like, this is amazing. They're ninjas, but he's not a ninja. He's wearing orange. He's like, you can see him. He's blonde. What's going on? He's got fox face. Who's that terrible guy he's always with? Why's that girl got pink hair? Oh my gosh, this is insane. There's like blood and everything. So I remember Naruto was choice. And from there, it just exponentially went on. It became something that I felt more confident in seeking out and more confident in finding. And I found all these different series. And I finally felt, and then it started to become mainstream. And I was like, oh my gosh, other people like it. And you find other people with like-minded, and it's great. I will say, I never felt ostracized. I always felt nervous about liking anime, but I never treated it like, oh my gosh, if people find, like if they find out the truth about me, they're not gonna like me. No, that never happened. I didn't care. I knew that eventually someone else would like the same things I liked. And it didn't matter because I had my sister and my godbrother and my sister and my little cousin who liked the same things that I liked. I'm getting too excited and so my thing's not focusing on me. They like the same things I like, so it didn't really matter. I was embarrassed for people to know it, the same way I was embarrassed if people found out that I was really obsessed with Arthurian legend, like really obsessed with Arthurian legend. Or I would get embarrassed if people found out I played video games, but it wasn't in the sense where I was like, oh, I just can't be myself. No one accepts me for me. No, that wasn't it. I didn't care. I just I knew eventually I would find people who liked the same things I did. And look it, I'm 33 years old, and y'all, I still go crazy after the new chapter of AOT comes out. So it makes me happy, and it's amazing. And clearly, it was the catalyst into what we now have as the core dance crew. An amazing way to celebrate our love for anime. Now, of course, my origin story isn't the only origin story. I have Bro TP, my Bro TP, Liz, has her own origin story of how she got into anime. So I'm going to share that with you right now. This is Liz's origin of anime.
Hi, Bro TP. All right, so my first encounter with anime was, I don't know ages when things happen to me. I just remember experiencing them at a young age. So I remember that one of my first animes was Sailor Moon. And another reason why it's one of my favorites because of just the nostalgia factor and because it was the first one. But I remember watching it when I was really young, and I was a girly girl, so I loved the magic and the outfits and the characters. Like, I loved all of that. And I remember, I think Sailor Mars was my favorite. Yeah, Mars was my favorite, but only because I looked the most like her. So it's like, that was the only reason, honestly. I mean, I liked her because she was really strong and she was fierce, but honestly, I liked her the most because I could maybe relate to her the most because she looked the most like me. But yeah, so she was my favorite character from Sailor Moon. And I also remember I have this very vivid memory of watching Dragon Ball Z for the first time when I was a kid. I remember it was after school, so it was nighttime. I finished my homework, I ate dinner, and so I was flipping through the TV to see what was on. And I think it was on Toonami, maybe. I think it was on Toonami. Yeah. And Dragon Ball Z was playing, and I've never watched it before. And I remember thinking, oh, like, let's just see what this is about, and maybe it's really interesting. And I remember watching it, and I remember feeling confused, and I'm like, I don't know if I like this or not, but it was cool, but I don't know yet. And so I was kind of like dipping my toes in, and then I just kept watching it. And I actually ended up really, really liking Dragon Ball Z. So that was another memory that I had of just my childhood and getting into Dragon Ball. There was also, of course, Pokemon. Pokemon was probably the deepest that I've ever gone in an anime. So I really liked Pokemon, and I watched it, and I also collected cards. I remember going into the store, like an Asian market or something like that, and they had this little place where they sold cards. And so I remember begging my parents to buy me a pack of cards, and I would get them, and then I would see what I got, and then I would collect them in a binder. And I don't know where that binder is. I really think my parents sent it to the Philippines or something like that. That happens a lot in my household. But Pokemon was definitely something that I loved as a kid. But the thing is that I didn't know this was called anime. I just thought that all these things that I was watching were just cartoons, like Rugrats or Hey Arnold or all the other cartoons that I was already watching. It wasn't until like way later when I found out that there's this undiscovered by me world that is anime. And now, like, fast forwarding to now, anime is just something that I really love, and it has really great nostalgia factor, and it feels like I'm connected to like my childhood in some way. Even if I'm watching different anime or like new anime, it's like it always comes back to that feeling that I had when I was a kid. So yeah, that was my first encounter with anime. Like, it always comes back to.
Sorry, I'm like trying to figure out. Okay, that was a great. It's cool because I didn't know Bro TP had seen Dragon Ball Z in the beginning too, and it is interesting because a lot of core wasn't they other than maybe I'd say Caleb and Adam and Goge. Those are the only ones I can remember. They are the only ones who ever liked Dragon Ball Z even remotely as much as I did. It was something that we really understood. They all loved Vegeta, and I'm over. Oh, Chibs! Chibs, that's how me and Chibs when she first joined the team, that was the moment when it evolved from her just being a new recruit to her being like, oh, we're lifelong friends. We were talking after a performance and talking about nerdy things, and she said one of two things. The first thing she said was I was saying how much I didn't like Ginny in the movie version of Harry Potter because she wasn't as cool as she was in the books. And Chibs was like, ugh, yeah, Ginny in the movies is terrible. And all of us were like, oh my gosh, we love Chibs. And then I said, Trunks was my husbando. And she was like, Trunks is bae. And I went, oh my gosh, first of all, you know Trunks. And second of all, he's also bae. This is great. Side note, Dragon Ball Z wasn't just something for me. It was something that, for me, it was something that I shared, again, with my sister and Trixie and Dwayne. It blew our minds. We went on a vacation to Disneyland once, and it was me, my sister, and Trixie, and we were talking about Dragon Ball Z, and Dwayne, he's an Aquarius. He's the most Aquarius thing you'll ever Aquarius. Like, if 5 and 8 is 11, he's probably 2 over there. Or the color purple. I don't know. But he was sitting on the hotel bed. And he goes, all Saiyans are named after vegetables? And we were like, yeah, I guess. Like, what? And he goes, Kakarot, carrot, Raditz, radish. And we all went, what about Vegeta? And he went, Vegeta, Bulls. And this meme was born that day. All three of us went, oh my God, his name is Vegeta Bulls. It's so funny. So funny. Oh, he's dead. Okay, so I have one more origin story. It's from my sister's, but her recording wasn't sent to me, so she uploaded it to YouTube. So I'm going to try to see if I can get it on here. So bear with me a second. I'm going to find her. Here she is. Okay, display. Ah! That's a lot of things. Let's do this. Okay, here we go.
Is there other ones? The one for me?
I don't know what yours would be.
This is Tiff. Should be one. Okay. Hey guys, it's Tifa. So my anime, how I got into anime story will partly coincide, or mostly coincide with Kayla's, obviously, because we're sisters. If you didn't know, now you know. And it's so funny because I was talking to her earlier today, being like, how did we find out about this? And how did we find out about that? I know, from our, when we were really, really young, I just remember watching Sailor Moon and Dragon Ball Z. Those were on television. I'm pretty sure, because that's how we watched it. And whenever we would meet up with our godbrother and our godsister, we would just reenact either Sailor Moon or Dragon Ball Z. And those I don't think at the time I knew that was anime. I just think I thought it was...
Sorry, I'm having so much trouble with this display capture. What is going on? What are you looking at? This is so hard. Wait, hold on. Give me a second. She's telling a really good story. I can't... We're gonna get there. We're gonna find it. We're gonna find it. Just shh. Everyone, let's just remember that Naruto is great. And side note, whoever watched the first episode of Attack on Titan and then really wanted to share that with other people but wanted to see the horror on their faces when they saw the first episode of Attack on Titan for the first time? Raise your hand, because that was definitely me. Okay, let's see. Oh, okay. Here you go. Here you go, Kayla Malari. She found it. She's here. We're getting there. You're figuring out OBS. Boom! Shakalaka. Take that, son of a gun. She figured it out. Bam! There we go. Haha.
cartoons. And I just really liked that the girls had these cool superpowers. And they were drawn, everyone was drawn so pretty and stuff. And then I think as we got older, I always loved comic books, going to, and comic books when I was younger was around everywhere. There were those little metal comic book stands with just a couple comics on it, usually some sort of Archie comic or Betty and Veronica. This is long before Riverdale even was a thing, okay? And you could just grab a comic book for super, super cheap, at literally anywhere, at the grocery store or a gas station, or you didn't have to go somewhere special to find comic books. And I remember always having a lot of Archie and Jughead and Betty and Veronica. And then we kind of moved into the manga series. I don't know how we started getting into that, but I have a vivid memory of being in our little hometown mall, the Solano Mall, long before was taken over by Westfield. So it was this like rinky-dink little mall with a Dalton bookstore in it, which is like teeny tiny. But they had a whole like wooden like books, you know, like the floating bookshelves that are just like in the middle of the room. There was one of those that was all the way up to the ceiling with like mangas, and I remember like just sitting there forever just going through mangas with my sister, just like reading them in the store. We would like finish whole chunks of series just sitting there reading manga, and we would still want to like buy them and take them home so we could like read them over and over again. We've always been like that, even with books too. We're little nerds, 100%. But I think we were reading Fruits Basket, and it was Kayla's friend in high school who told us there was like an animated series of it, and we just like died. And I think we went and got it. We used to go to like Best Buy to try to find the series, and they used to actually sell box series. Like when I think about it, I was like, wow, there was like anime stuff, you know, accessible for the most part. Or we'd go on base because we were military kids, so you could go on base and it's like tax free, and so we'd compare prices like where the series were at. And gosh, I freaking loved Fruits Basket. Oh, so cute. And I think D.N.Angel was also in that time. And I remember our little brother, our cousin Ariel, was also into D.N.Angel, I think at that time, and I like couldn't have been more proud, you know. And there's also, you know, like during all this time, I didn't think any of that stuff was anything like specific. Like I wasn't like consciously knowing that it was anime, or like manga wasn't like comic books. It just like was the same thing as I think what everyone else, even though I knew everyone else was watching, I don't know. I guess I just wasn't really super aware at the time. But what was the Cartoon Network. Wait, is it Cartoon Network? Yeah, Cartoon Network. They were playing FLCL or Furikuri on like randomly. I forget what day. I think this was like after a Thanksgiving or maybe my birthday, and all our siblings were together. And if Kayla hasn't told you this story, like the siblings in our family, it's just me and her. But we have a god brother and god sister, who we consider like our older brother and our little sister, and then we have two cousins who were kind of like our little brother and little sister. And we were all together, I remember, in my room, latag on the floor, so like laid out on a blanket, and I had this tiny, tiny little Toshiba, you know, connected to a cable box, and we just found this really weird anime, but it played at the same time, like, every night, and it was playing the episodes consecutively, and since it's just a short series, we didn't know that, we had no idea what it was, but we were obsessed, and we ended up watching it all the way through, you know, they all slept over, like, that weekend or something, we watched it all the way through. Didn't know that that's what that was, we just thought it was just, like, some weird art thing, and I loved it, and now it has grown. I mean, there's so many, and I can't even keep up. I'm not, like, super, super good at that stuff, and, but when, like, I don't know, with anime, when one, like, comes in, I just, like, hook on, like, oh my gosh, Your Lie in April was so beautiful. Oh, and I don't know who introduced us to, like, Hayao Miyazaki, but all I know is, like, Spirited Away has always been in my life, and that's, like, my comfort movie. When I'm not feeling so great, I, like, take a bath, and then I get comfy cozy in my bed and make my room look all cute and sweet, and then I turn on Spirited Away, and I just cry, and I laugh, and I feel better. But yeah, it's kind of weird, actually. Guys, I'm so old, so sometimes I'm like, look back, and I'm like, how did any of these things come to be in my life? But yeah, that's basically it. Hopefully Kayla can, like, sort more of this out. Okay, anyways. Bye!
gosh, I forgot. I can't believe I forgot Fully Cooley. And what, my God, that like, I remember the Fully Cooley we loved. It doesn't make sense. It's 6 episodes. Completely existential. Most people don't even like it because they're like, I don't understand it. That's why we loved it. It's super existential. I can't see my computer. I can't close this window. But it's crazy. It's so good. And that soundtrack was great. It was fantastic. It was a mixture of like this Japanese rock, this punk rock that we never knew. Like, I didn't know that was a whole genre of music. And so we ended up buying that soundtrack. And that is a soundtrack that when I finally started driving into high school, it wasn't until junior year, because juniors, anyone younger than that wasn't allowed to park in the parking lot. And junior year, I finally got to drive to school, and I would blast Fully Cooley, the soundtrack, and the opening and closing of Naruto. Like, that music, Naruto was my thing. I like reminding of that because Naruto was at the same time when I was like really into Linkin Park. And so the Linkin Park CD with Given Up and gosh, what else is on that soundtrack? That to me was my Naruto soundtrack. Giving Up, not because of what the subject material of the song was, but that first guitar riff, that dun 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 dun. Like, to me, when I played that was my Naruto running music. That was me running with Team 7, just with my arm back here. So it's crazy now going back on this journey of the origin of anime in our lives, because you realize they really were markers for certain moments. Like, I'm going back and I'm like, wow, this and this happened when I was a sophomore. This and this happened when I was a junior. This and this happened in middle school. And it's all underscored by this love of anime the whole time. That became something that I based a lot of my eggs on in this dance crew, where we just get to celebrate our love of anime. So I hope that gives a little insight on how integrated we are into the anime world. A lot of times, and I know it's none of you here, but there are some lovely comrades out there who question the integrity of our love of anime. There's a lot of times they watch our sets and they're like, if these people really knew this show, and then would add something after that, they would do this and this. And that kind of sucks to hear, especially for all of us on the team, because we're like, we do love this show. Why would I create something for something I have no idea about? So that's to give you a background of how much we love this, how much we are integrated into this world. We're not just tourists in here. We have bought and claimed property. We are paying a mortgage here. We have set our roots down. This is the place that we're going to hand off to our grandchildren. So with that being said, that was part 1 of the anime series. You got to hear my origin story. You got to hear the origin anime of Bro TP and of my sister. I'm going to have more Corsmen come in. We're going to talk more about anime. So please tune in every Wednesday at 8 p.m. This series is going to go on a lot. We're going to talk about some really fun stuff. And we're going to talk about the fun stuff, which isn't fun. All the stuff we hate about anime. All the stuff we would change about anime. Ooh, that's a good talk. But then we'll also talk about the ones that we recommend, the ones that really change our lives, the ones that really kind of reflect us as people. Now, like I said, after this, I'm hopping onto IG because stuff happened today. Ooh, it is a Wednesday for the book. So if you want to talk about everything that's kind of very current affairs, hop onto our town hall on IG, the Core Dance Crew, 9 p.m. I'll be on there. Not tomorrow, because today's Wednesday. Excuse me. I keep burping, and I apologize. Where is this? No. Lies. I need to get it on here. On Friday, my lovely Bro TP has her annual, why do I say annual? That's yearly. Her bi-weekly show, Improve Your Improv, where she brings on a Corsman to improv with. And this week, this week it's my little Urban, our very own team manager, will be doing improv. Oh, it's so loud. I'm sorry, I forgot there was music on that. It's so loud. Lonnie! Hi, Lonnie. Improve Your Improv with my bro TP and my little, they will be dancing on IG. That's also on our IGTV. You can catch that at 7 p.m. If you can't catch it at 7 p.m. and tune in live, you can also watch it afterwards. And then I don't think it's going to happen this Sunday, but Koki versus Vegetables is going on a small hiatus because we're all really excited. That show is evolving. Koki is branching out beyond Vegetables. It is no longer Koki versus Vegetables. It will be Koki versus some other stuff that he's probably not going to like either. But you know what? That's fine, because our favorite thing is to watch Koki do stuff that he doesn't want to do, but he does it anyway. Isn't that amazing? Respectable. So, Koki versus Vegetables will be on hiatus, and it'll be coming back bigger and better than ever. On Thursday, we have a new video dropping, another throwback video, so tune into that. And then next week, we will have the second episode of Baking with Penguins with our very own Joe on our YouTube channel. So we have a lot of content showing up for you, a lot of stuff we're doing digitally. We're having it all digital because, as we know, the pandemic is still a thing. So please stay in if you can. Tune in with us. Have fun. Watch some of the anime. Watch Dragon Ball Z. But all right, don't watch just Super, okay? Go watch Dragon Ball Z. Go back and watch the Cell games. If you haven't watched the Cell games, then you didn't get to see Gohan before he was a weenie. Go watch Dragon Ball Z. Go watch D.N.Angel, because it was great. Go watch Naruto, like the original. If you haven't watched Naruto, come on. You can't watch B&HA and then not watch Naruto, all right? And go watch Fully Cooley, because I swear it's good. I know some people don't like it, but go watch it. It's good. I promise. And then for feel goods, just go watch some Hayao Miyazaki. Anyways, thank you all for tuning in. I will see you next week. I'll see you on IG if you want to go talk about some stuff that happened today. Hands out. Soul Tomato on 3. 1, 2, 3. Soul Tomato.